And we are very, very honored to introduce you now to Shelly Covert, who is going to present to you something she's been working on for quite some time, Cultural Resource and Sensitivity Primer. Shelly Covert, Executive Director of CHIRP and also Executive Secretary of the Foothills Nisenan. Welcome, Shelly.
Homakani, Homoyabemi, Nishinanamimi Wakamni, Lidam Lily Yapimni, Ustama Hedidi. Good morning. I'm Shelly Covert. I'm the spokesperson for the Nevada City Rancheria and Nisenan tribe, as Izzy said, as well as the executive director of our nonprofit that supports the tribe, CHIRP, the California Heritage Indigenous Research Project. So I'm really excited to talk about this today. This has been something, that we have lived with for generations. We've been slowly over the last, probably the last 20 years, pretty steadily with a different view than we'd had in the previous generations, is being able to comment on or work on projects with organizations, government bodies, private property owners sometimes, as ground disturbing activity is going on in our Nisenan territory. And as you can imagine, this conversation it's taken so many forms over the years and throughout the generations. Because our history has been completely erased and the people are pretty much invisible here in our homelands, we've worked really hard in the last 10, 12, 14 years, to raise the visibility of the Nevada City Rancheria and Nisenan, to raise the visibility of the importance of our culture, and to continue our presence here in our homelands today. And this comes with so much needed education. It's so much needed visibility. People cannot educate themselves if they think that we're extinct. And growing up, when I was in high school, in social studies or history, the things that we learned, I was born and raised here in Grass Valley, as were all my family members. We are uninterrupted in our homelands, which I'm learning as I get older is actually pretty rare. So many people were moved out of their homelands. So as I was going to school, when we did talk about Native American topics or Native American history, it was always centered in the past. And it was never, ever, ever inclusive of California's Native history. We were said to be extinct. It's said that our language is extinct. And, our identity here in Gold Country, as much as this is my identity as well, we're the Nevada Union Miners, it's so deeply embedded, this Gold Rush identity, that it just continued to further erase the people. So you can imagine, as projects are happening and the elders were still alive, when a project or a road or a hospital or a reservoir and a dam, as all these things are going in, there's a worry and a sadness, and I may even say a terror within the tribal community, because they know what is being disturbed. They know where the ancient burning grounds were and the burial grounds were. Also, to add on to that is that we're a cremating society. So if people doing ground disturbing projects in our area don't know that, you're not going to accidentally fall into what would be obvious to the layperson, a graveyard or a burial grounds. So there's a lot of that story that we really have to, I feel like we're continually not only having to recreate history for people that only partial history was told here, but also educating people as to the current status of the world we're living in right now. Is there's an entire world that most people don't know about, an entire culture and civilization that was here for thousands and thousands of years that most folks don't know about. So that's one piece of, the reason for the cultural resource and sensitivity primer. The other piece is that I work as a tribal site monitor. So does my husband, so do my cousins. And a lot of times when we know there's a burial ground, this is worst case scenario I'm sharing with you. There's a huge like gray in between this of, oh, it's safe, to the scenario I'm going to share with you right now. When you're out doing field work, usually there's a known site there. With our small capacity, sometimes we only end up out in the field work because most of the time it's not paid and we're literally just showing up. People are taking days off work. One day I realized that, wow, all these people are at work except me. Like I'm here for totally different reasons, So we'll be out there in the field to protect and to observe what's happening near these very important ancient sacred sites. And what I've, unfortunately, because I'm pretty much like this all the time, I feel like I can, I'm friends with a lot of folks, and I always hold in my heart that there's an easy solution. It's just that we can't hear each other, even though we want different things. I don't see why we can't make everybody happy. It just takes some creativity and smarts and time and ears. But I've experienced out in the field the blatant racism that happens. I say I'm privileged to see these things happen because I'm very light skinned. So I don't sit in the moment that some of my darker relatives sit in, where I'm targeted for my skin color. I can step outside of my culture at any moment I want because I'm light. So, but I've had the privilege and horror to see it with my own eyes. I've seen people who are working for the project in construction, in the big dump trucks and the graders, and even some of the field archaeologists. And I've heard all kinds of name calling. I've never seen a physical alteration yet, but I've seen it come close. The worst thing that I had seen was there was an older Native man on the last project we were working, and every time a couple certain water trucks would drive by, they'd just start going, ooh, where's your feathers, dude? And just calling him names, and I have first wondered, like, oh, was there some prior thing that went on to cause this action that I just don't know about? Maybe they know each other, maybe they don't like each other. But after talking to the Native man, I realized that this happens a lot. He works on projects to protect the most sacred, the most sensitive it's a cultural world that, is many times, unfortunately, having a lake put on it, having a road put on it, having a building put on it. And the catalyst for this is that it's also my opinion that the bosses, the leaders in these corporations, usually staff, their attitude, the way they treat the public, there's a sense of ethics. I think that, if you want to talk about the trickle down effect, I think that trickles down. And I think it's really apparent that if staff are acting a certain way, that they're not being guided by leadership. And I can't I can't stand for that. I can't stand to be out there, especially in the hot sun. I think it was like 115 degrees, that day that I was out there, and it was just so unfortunate. The other piece is some of the archaeologists, working with archaeologists in the world in the way that we do. There's also not like the previous thing I just explained, but when archaeologists find a site, they find artifacts or they find a burial, like that's their job. I think there's excitement around that. And when a group of people are standing here lamenting the find or hoping, everybody's crossing all their fingers to hope that, well, we heard there's a burial here, I sure hope not. And then it's uncovered. And you have your archaeologist, and then in a couple of my experiences, there were university students who were in school, but out on the project doing work. And they're like, literally like, woo, and all excited. And I mean, that is something that should be professionally kept inside, given the circumstances that these are ancestors and these are actually people's graves that were put in the ground with prayers they were supposed to stay there, and so there are just these moments all along the conversation that I have personally experienced in my limited time doing this, this kind of work, working on projects and seeing what I've seen. When I talk to the old timers, they're like, this is always the way it's been. And it used to be really, really, really bad in the 70s. And that's where you get moments like Standing Rock. That's where you get people putting their body in between what they feel needs to be protected and somebody else who I truly believe they just don't get it. And I think that, and I've learned that when you hand somebody a piece of paper with bullet points, especially if you don't know them and they hand you a paper that says, these things are really important to me, most of the time people are at least willing to hear you, to try to understand, and to try to make it better. So in this work that we're putting together, and I'm so happy for the support of the Sierra Fund, it was my desire to get out there and talk to government agencies, talk to local stakeholders like PG&E, NID, all of our different people who are doing work in Nisenan territory, and then share this out once it's together so that other tribes can have at least a model to work from. I think there's some very general, broad overviews within the material that we're going to be sharing that can apply to all tribes. They can go in and tweak it as they need be for their homelands and their territory and their situation and the people that they work with. But hopefully it's going to be a broad stroke overview that will impact in a good way tribes, organizations, government bodies, our utility districts, the folks who I hope they just don't know any better. And with a little conversation, maybe it can take some of those sharp spikes off of these situations that are truly already unfortunate. As Izzy was talking about the mining contaminants and where the mines are and how that toxic legacy just continues to go on and on and on. Under almost every mine is, ancestral homelands of somebody. And under every reservoir, under, I won't say all freeways, but a lot of freeways, under most towns, in gold rush times, the town sites were the good sites and they were taken first, the big ranches, and so on. So there's a lot of pain there. And, in today's climate, especially with our push for social, racial, and environmental justice, a little booklet that with some bullet points, I just hope might be, take off some of the edge and uncertainty. So that leads many times to a really ugly outcome when two sets of folks just can't understand each other, where they're coming from. So that's, we hope to have that out. I know we've got grant deadlines and stuff, but it will be coming out, and I hope to make it widely available. I really hope to get some good conversation with the people who I'm hoping most to implement some of these guidelines, I guess we would call them best practices, just to understand the sensitivity of these moments that they may not see. So thank you.
Thank you, Shelly. Does anybody have a question? I didn't see anything come in on the chat. A question for Shelly. I have a question, Shelly. What,
Okay.
if you were to tell somebody, what's the one thing they could do wherever they live? What's the first thing they should do when they're thinking about a project on abandoned mine land?
There are a couple steps. If unfortunately Nevada City Rancheria is a terminated tribe, so we're not federally recognized. Normally you would go to look up who the federally recognized tribe is, whose land you're on. In our case here where we are, because we are not federally recognized, the Native American Heritage Commission is also a resource to find, they have a sacred lands file. But those are only for recorded sites. The best thing you can do, if it's within your capacity and you can find the folks, which isn't always possible. So it seems like the tribes, you know, they stay hidden and invisible for a reason, even still today in 2021, it's crazy. But reach out to your local tribe. Nobody will know better than the tribe itself and their elders of what is where. So many times in my family, I'm struggling with this right now. It's that push me, pull you thing of the elders have kept these sacred sites secret because it's been historically the experience that as soon as you tell somebody where something is, it gets looted. And then today, that if these sites aren't on the map somewhere for organizations like the city and the county and the state of California and the nation, projects, they don't have to go through the cultural review process. And the only other way to know if there's something there is to fall in it during the project. So, you know, if you know who your local tribe is, if you don't, there's such a cool phone app, you can Google it, but you text your zip code to this app and it'll bing back and tell you who the local tribe is. It's pretty.
You get someone to put that text into the chat? Can Ember or somebody you know text that to us, because that's an awesome tool.
Oh, it's so cool.
I'll
look it up and we'll pop it in there.
I know it's hard when people, you know, call or send you a, you know, especially when everybody's required to do consultation under, at least some government agencies are, and they send you a letter. Does that work? Is that outreaching to you? How do we best contact you?
The best thing, and I suppose that's, you know, another huge hope and wish of the tribe here, is to form a relationship with the people. I can just say from my own experience, when letters are sent, when you get a phone call, even if somebody knocks at the dang door, the people don't respond. I mean, there's still this invisibility and this hiding thing that just continues to go on for great reason. I'm in the generation where I'm trying to at least bend that a little bit, but the best way is to build a relationship with the local tribe where you are. There's got to be trust. You know, I really hope that the trust building and the relationship building we've been doing over the last 14, 15 years, it's really starting to show, because I have trust. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here speaking with you all via the Sierra Fund if we had not built trust. And trust building takes a long time, especially if you have different eyes, different worldviews or whatever it is. And you've got to build trust, build a relationship with those folks. Our capacity here locally is so tiny. I always say, if we were federally recognized, you know, we would have the ability to self-govern and to be present more in the community, we would, be able, I would have all these I could hire staff and, tell everybody what to do. And I'm sure that we could answer all the letters that people send, but I could literally, this is a little bit embarrassing. I can show you how they come. Here's my fake background is getting them out of the way. This was like yesterday, and I don't have a department to answer these things. And so if it's a tiny bit of hand holding, maybe even a little bit more than a tiny bit of hand holding, but building that relationship. And then, you see, these guys are great. Alex is like, poke Shelly, and while some people may think they're, oh, am I being annoying by poking you? And I'm like, please poke away. I trust that you're going to smack me upside the head when something really important happens, but it's helping, it's hand holding, it's community building, and it's relationship building. And it's what really truly needs to happen for the planet, for the environment, for all of us into the future. This separation of folks over, whatever it is on a given day, just all that matters is our communities, our relationships, our friends, and